Call to order for the Fayette County Board of Education meeting on June 17th. We will begin this evening with a moment of reflection. We can think about all the things that we're grateful for in our lives. Thank you. And now we're going to welcome Carson Phillips, a Bear Scout from Pac 75. So if everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job, Carson.
Good job, Carson.
Thank you, Carson. All right, we now need approval of the agenda. Dr. Bear, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, we're ready to go. We would recommend the board approve as submitted.
Get a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 4-0. Now it's time for our favorite part of the meeting, our recognitions.
Okay, good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank our Stars Mill High School lacrosse soccer team, the girls team, for coming here tonight on their time off. I appreciate that. If I may ask the coaches and the team to please come forward. Okay, as they're coming forward, I'm going to talk a little bit about them and their accomplishment. The girls lacrosse team at Stars Mill High School, they made history 2 times over this year. First, they are the first ever lacrosse team from Fayette County to win a state championship. And second, they are the first ever lacrosse team from a South Metro county to win a state championship. So let's give them a round of applause. The team went up against one of the most revered teams in the state, or what was considered at the time one of the most revered teams in the state, and that was Blessed Trinity Catholic High School in Roswell. And that team has won a state championship 3 times. Our Stars Mill High School team poured their hearts and souls into their game against this powerhouse team to come out victorious, winning the state championship and laying the claim as the best high school girls lacrosse team in the state of Georgia. So tonight we have just about the entire team with us, and typically we ask just for the captains to come forward for the sake of time, but since they are the only recognition tonight, we've asked for the whole team to come forward. So we're going to award certificates now to the team and their coaches. And first up, we have Anna Beardsley, Jessica DeLuca, Caitlin Donovan, Jackie Edwards, Emma Grace Hepler, Maya Hunter, Briley Kalin, Jinx Carley, Rayanne King, Maddie Cross, Catherine Ann Lemon, Hannah Leon, Addison McDaniel, Carly Mullins, Ansley Wallace, and Leanne Winden. And we have our coaches, head coach Mary Lehman, and assistant coaches David King and Chris Beardsley. Congratulations. Thank you.
Actually, ladies, before you leave, there is, I've got to pick on you just a little bit. There is one other recognition that's almost as important as your recognition. And I think you may have a chance of being on the front cover of Sports Illustrated. The group that I'm about to recognize, I'm not sure they'll ever make it to Sports Illustrated. So if you'll stay with me just a half a second, and then we'll let you go. It's my pleasure to announce, and this is not a real big surprise, but our Board of Education just last week at the Georgia School Boards Conference, Summer Conference, they were recognized as being an exemplary Board of Education. The Georgia School Boards Association actually has 3 areas of qualifications or designations. It's a quality board, a distinguished board, and then an exemplary board. So the top group in the state is exemplary status. And that means they have to go to additional training. They have to get more hours than anybody else has to get. That means that they have to work really hard, and they do a lot with community buy-in, and they assess themselves, and they have a real hard job in trying to keep me straight too. So it's a real pleasure and privilege to recognize our board. I know Mr. Brian Anderson is not able to be here. He had a family issue where he couldn't come. But if y'all will indulge me, ask these guys to come up and let's give them a round of applause, and we can present them their trophy. Do selfies.
Right.
But I'm going to ask Ms. Berry Dreisbach to present this to us, and if I can. Well, okay, I can stand in the middle. That's good. But let me hand this off. This is your trophy here. But congratulations to our Board of Education.
Let me do one more. Okay.
Reminder for all the speakers.
There you go. And we'll tweet this out so everybody will be thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations to you guys.
Well, Jody, I just want to thank you for your kind words, and it is a little bit of extra work to earn the exemplary board, but it's not near as much work as our employees put in to do what they do every day. So it was a pleasure to try to reach that level, and hopefully we can raise the bar for the next board.
Yes. All right, Kay, did we have any comments from the public? Anybody sign up? Not in a moment. No comments from the public? Yeah, I know. So now we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is pathway completions, and I know Dr. Turner and Ms. Collins are here, and they're going to share some information about the pathway completion. This is one of our metrics within our school improvement plan, and I think we've got a good report for you here this evening.
We do. We have a comprehensive report for you this evening. Thank you, Kay, for pulling up the PowerPoint. Pathway completion, it does involve CTE, but it also involves advanced academics, fine arts, and world languages. So I have my crew here this evening who help to oversee those programs. The first slide in the PowerPoint just explains how you get an advanced academic pathway Basically, you're meeting your core subjects, but you're also taking advanced studies through the Advanced Placement Program, IB, or dual enrollment. And then they also complete 2 sequential units of a foreign language. Okay, that's okay. All right. CTE is probably one of the more complicated ways to complete a pathway. They choose their CTE, their career technical area of focus. They have to take 3 sequential courses in that career pathway. It also gives them opportunities to earn industry credentials. They also participate in student organizations like HOSA or DECA, Skills USA. You see those kids up here all the time being recognized for the awards that they win at those student competitions associated with those organizations. And then there's also the end of pathway assessments that students take, and we'll be reporting out on that information at a later time when that data has been verified. The fine arts pathway is, again, students are taking 3 courses in either dance, music, theater, or visual arts. And then world languages, they complete their world language pathway when they're taking 3 courses in the same language, and the 3rd course, or I'm sorry, 2 courses in the same language and an advanced placement. So it can either be 3 courses like French 1, 2, and 3, or they could be doing something like Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and then taking Spanish through dual enrollment. Okay, and then our last slide is the data that you see there. If you don't mind clicking on that, please, Kay. This data represents students who have completed at least 1 pathway. And personally, I think the data looks pretty good. We've given you some handouts if you like. This is from the Georgia Department of Education. It outlines what it means to complete a pathway. The first part is on the other areas like advanced academics, fine arts, world languages, and then the rest of this are all the different CTE pathways that is offered through the Georgia Department of Education. And then if you want to look to see what's offered in Fayette County, you have a copy of this brochure here. This is published in the fall, usually in October or November, and we're putting out there what we know at that time to be the CTE offerings. What you see in here for McIntosh is not entirely accurate because once we went through the allotment process with McIntosh moving to a 7-period day, they got some additional CTE allotments and changed up their pathway offerings a little bit so that information for McIntosh is not quite completely accurate in that particular brochure. So.
Is this all the pathways we offer? I'm just looking at that slide.
All the pathways we offer,
Yeah.
ladies,
Yes,
are those all the pathways we offer? Yes, sir, it is.
I didn't see health. Oh, there it is. Never mind. All right.
There's a lot of information in the pathway process. I'm very pleased to see that we're continuing to have more students actually select a pathway. That is an indication, I think, for us that students are finding an area of passion, an area of focus, and they're able to get a really good start with where they may be headed, whether it's to an Ivy League university, to a technical college, or really right into the world of work. One of the things that I would want to say with the end of pathway assessments, that's something that I know Ms. Collins does, and she applies for grants from the state. We get money to help offset those assessment items, but that is most of those are industry certified credentials. And when students take the CNA end of assessment, pathway assessment, or if they do something in engineering or in graphic design, most all of those are industry certified assessments. So I'm really pleased with that. It's not just, I punch my ticket and I'm done. you've got a marketable credential when you leave with that in your hand. So that, I think that really helps put our students ahead of the game. And, you know, if you look at statewide data, most young people who complete a 3-course sequence or a pathway, their graduation rate is much higher, typically. And so we've got over 83% of our students that are completing a pathway based on this year's data. I think that's a little tick up from the year before. But the most important thing is that they have a sense of direction. Our graduation rate is much higher than that. But they have not just courses that they've collected and accrued, and now I'm graduated. They actually have some sense of direction. So this is really important information, I think, for our community and for our families.
And we've improved our process for collecting data on pathway completion through Infinite Campus. So we feel like this data is more reliable than what you may have seen in the past. So.
Good.
So what does the future hold? More pathways, or you're replacing pathways, or?
Well, we have to kind of see how things evolve. We do look at offering other pathways. For example, if there is a demand for additional CTE programs, you know, the I guess you would call it the film pathway, that's relatively new. So it kind of depends on what our workforce development data is telling us, what new pathways we would develop. Then the advanced academics, you know, that will expand when we bring IB on board and get that program up and running. So we would expect that that would contribute to pathway completion in the future.
But this is what we're doing next year. There's no new ones coming on.
It shouldn't change a lot from this year to next year.
There are a couple of things I do want us that we're pushing on. I'll put it that way, Dr. Marchman, and that's the K-12 computer science. That's something I think is really important for us. And also that vertical alignment with engineering. And part of that is really based on.
About that. I didn't know if that was next
Yes,
year.
sir. Part of the reason why we can't say absolutely definitively yes is that nobody's doing that, not really that well aligned like what we hope to be able to accomplish here. I think we have pockets of that, and part of the reason why we weren't able to say definitively the K-12 piece, or particularly this high school piece, is that we're working with post-secondary institutions to help provide some support there. And it takes a lot of collaboration between K-12 and USG and TSG in order to make all those dots connect. So we've been pushing our folks hard. They're willing. I think we'll eventually get there. And that's going to positively impact a lot of our business and industry in this community as well. So it's coming.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Good. No other questions there. We'll move on to item 7B with the flexible benefit package. I know Mr. Gray and particularly Ms. Robertson has been doing a lot of work, and I see Aaron coming up. I was looking for her there. This is information that has been being worked on quite a bit. We haven't had as much conversation about this, not because we didn't want to, but because it was going through the vetting process, and we were able to complete that, I guess, just about a couple of weeks ago. So, Aaron, if you will come and speak to the flexible benefit package that we're proposing.
Good evening. Several months ago, we started investigating other options for our flexible benefits for employees. We wanted to search for a new vendor that would provide the best value and quality for our employees and also give us great customer service. So we went through a very extensive selection process, and tonight we would like to recommend the consulting firm Clear Concepts. We have a couple of representatives from Clear Concepts in the audience, so they are here to lend their support, or if you have any specific questions for them. But I just wanted to highlight some things about Clear Concepts that appeal to us as a committee. First, they work only with Georgia school systems, so that appealed to us. Also, they're very knowledgeable of state health and the needs of school systems. They have shown without a doubt that they can help school systems provide quality benefit options to their employees at a lower cost, which is important. They will help us streamline processes for administrative tasks. We love their emphasis on educating employees about their benefits and educating employees about their retirement savings options. And they really stood out as a company who wants to understand our goals and who will partner with us to help us achieve our goals, including those areas in our strategic plan, such as recruitment and retention. So we would like to recommend Clear Concepts as our provider for our flexible benefits for our employees. Do you have any questions?
I know Ally and Eric, y'all be good, raise a hand. Okay, I see you out there in the audience. We appreciate y'all coming. That's the president and executive vice president for Clear Concepts. So we're happy to answer any questions if board members have any. But we feel like we want to make sure our folks not only get the best value from the services that they need, but we want to be able to help them. Sometimes in the benefits business, you have folks who are trying to come in and sell products. I think Clear Concepts are going to try to come in and find out exactly what is it that the employee feels like they need, and then find the best product to match their need. And that's a big difference. We've had a provider for a long time, and it's not that it was bad, because it wasn't, but we're just always looking for the very best opportunities for our folks here. So questions from the board? I know you've had a chance to look at the information that we've sent, so if there are no questions, Aaron, you did a nice job. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks, good change. Thanks, Aaron.
Next on the agenda is item 7C. It's the Fayette County Model of Achievement and Accountability. This is, excuse me, one thing there weren't any attachments to this on your assembly, but I wanted to make sure the board knew that we still have the strategic improvement plan. It's still out for public participation. That finishes up in a couple of weeks. And as soon as that's done and the public comment period is over, then we'll be able to come back in and tweak the model of achievement accountability. That's typically what we do. We talk about it in June. We discuss a little more in July, and then typically we recommend the new school year 19 and 20 for your approval. So just wanted you to know that we are working on that, but we've got the strategic improvement plan, public comment period, and then we'll come back to it with you.
Okay.
Any comments? If none, we'll go on to 7D, the visitor management system. And I know Dr. Lombard and Mr. Sanders have been working on this, and we've actually piloted a couple of products. I know they've vetted probably 5 different vehicles, and we just are excited about bringing a unified system to work in all of our schools across the district. So Dr. Lombard, if you will.
Good evening. One of the keys to improving school facility security is better management and control of visitors. So schools need to screen people before they come in. They need to ensure students are checked out by authorized persons. They need to account for students coming in and out of the school. They need to track everyone in the building in case of an emergency. So currently we only have 5 schools that have any form of formal visitor management system other than a paper and pencil sign-in sheet. As outlined in my memo, a committee of school-based users and district staff members were invited to participate in the Visitor Management System Selection Committee. The committee looked at not only visitor management, but also streamlining the student check-in and check-out process, staff sign-in, and volunteer management. Based on a comprehensive review of the 5 proposals and participation in demonstrations from each vendor, the committee overwhelmingly recommended the K-12 Checkmate Pro system. The key factors for this recommendation were the seamless integration of Infinite Campus and the cost. And this vendor actually does Infinite Campus, so that's why it was such a good integration. We are planning on using state school safety grant funds to pay for the initial software licenses, training, support, links to the National Sex Offender Database, the supply of visitor badges and tardy slips, and the technical hardware. Annual license renewals and cost expenditures will be responsibility of the school after the first year. So I recommend the board approve this recommendation.
Okay. Go ahead.
How much is the cost after the first year for the schools to renew?
It'll be less than $500.
Oh, okay.
And we're not expecting them to have PTO pitch in for that. We expect that to put them in their annual budgets, and we'll pay through that way.
Questions?
Comments?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
it. Next on the agenda, just
Actually, I
wanted.
did have a question.
Yes, sir.
Not for you, so he recommended that we approve this. Is that on a later meeting that we're going to approve that?
Actually, it's on the action item,
Oh, I didn't see it.
a little bit further down, but I wanted to make sure you had any questions about it, or if we hadn't been real clear about what we were hoping to try to do. We've been talking about this a little bit on and on for quite some time. We actually had Volunteer Tracker. That was a group that was doing a pilot for us in one of our feeder patterns, and it was good, but we felt like once we found this one, it's even better. So it works better for us because of our student information system, Infinite Campus.
Oh, I see.
And it's just it's a piece of that platform.
It's on the consent agenda.
Yes,
that's
sir.
why I didn't see it.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Our school level votes were unanimous because of the integration with IC and Infinite Campus.
If no other questions there, budget discussion. I know that we've had our 2 public hearings, and just wanted to be sure if there was any conversation that the board wanted to have. Certainly, we can do that now in the superintendent's report if you'd like to. Nothing has changed in the budget. We will comment about that, I think, when we get down to the action item. Okay. If none, then we'll move on to item 7F and the Student Code of Conduct. And I know Dr. Lombard and Mr. Sanders have been working on that. We've tweaked a little bit from our last meeting. The one thing that I would like to say just to the board before Dr. Lombard addresses specifics is that we really have worked hard to try to bring some common sense to our Code of Conduct, to be firm, fair, and consistent, but also use good judgment. And I feel like we're closer to that today with this recommendation, perhaps more than we ever have been before. So, Dr. Lombard.
So I submitted to the board an updated summary of the changes made to the 2019-2020 school year Code of Conduct and the final version for your approval. We received input from our school administrators and district staff, from our school board lawyers, and from our stakeholders with 2 online surveys. We had a total of 27 responses to that, and a meeting in conjunction with school council training of teachers and parents. We use that input for a number of changes, including clarification of the dress code change for head covering by specifically stating the restrictions of non-religious headgear. There's some concerns about that. Based on our inquiry, the school board lawyers recommended that we expand the definition of prohibited tobacco and e-cigarettes to include any products containing CBD or hemp. We try to get some clarification on that. The school board lawyers also recommended that we reword the search and seizure section in the secondary edition and reword the section on teacher qualifications and what information people could request on teacher qualifications. With these changes made, I recommend this board approve both the elementary and secondary versions of the 1920 Code of Conduct. Are there any questions?
And what did we change about teacher qualifications? What
There was some
people can ask about?
slight wording in there that they said, that, because if there's somebody's questioning the teacher qualifications, somebody can ask for that through HR, and they just made some minor changes on that.
So what can somebody get? Just the education and,
Right, their
Training.
qualifications, especially those that may be teaching, they're not certified, so certain questions they could ask about their backgrounds and all that.
I was just trying to figure out what was different. That's
We've done a pretty thorough job over the last couple of years of changing this out and really had minor changes.
Excuse me, my only comment, and it's kind of related to the Code of Conduct, and that the Code of Conduct quotes our non-discrimination policy. I think that, we talk a lot about social emotional learning and protecting our most vulnerable students. I think that it would be important to add, gender expression and identity and sexual orientation to our non-discrimination policy. I think it has become fairly commonplace in corporate America. I think more and more schools are doing it. I know not a lot of public school systems in Georgia have done it yet, but I think it would be an important statement for, I think, what are statistically our most vulnerable students. So I don't know if we can review that policy at a future date. I know it's involved with HR, it's involved, I mean, this is just a quoting of that other policy, so it's not necessarily appropriate to.
What we have in the
Or
code
talk
is
about
reflected in
that,
what's our
so.
current policy.
Hmm?
What we have in the code of conduct reflects what our
Correct.
current policy says.
Correct, which is not on the agenda today, but
Right.
I would ask that it be on the agenda in the future, so.
Okay.
Yeah, the only hesitation I would have with that is, I did a little research today and I couldn't find a consensus about what that means. And I think if you can't find a consensus about what that means, every website I looked at defined it a little bit differently.
Say that again, I didn't hear what you said.
I couldn't figure out what that really means.
What really means?
Gender expression identity, because you see a lot of different definitions out there. And if it's not well-defined, I think that's opening ourselves up to some lawsuits. But I'd like to talk to our attorneys about it, be happy to talk to a later date. But I'd really like to define those terms if we include it in our policy.
Yeah, I think that, if you Google sample non-discrimination policy, it's, comes up from the, at least from an HR perspective, the Society of HR Professionals has it in their sample policy. It's in University of Georgia's policy. It's in Clayton State's policy. It's, I think in most of corporate America now includes these things in their HR and non-discrimination policies.
Certainly, a topic that we'd need to want to look at very thoroughly, and there's no reason why we can't pull that on the agenda for some future discussion to be able to answer some of the questions you have to talk about that. And but clearly, our student code of conduct, everything we do is a reflection of the board policy. So to change the student code of conduct, we need to look at our board policy. So, but currently, as it stands, I think we're at a point where we want to, not trying to force the issue, but we certainly need to go ahead and get this printed. If there's some changes in that down the road, we can always come back in and add an addendum to the code of conduct. It's not unusual for us to come back in and do that.
We did that for the dress code
Yes, sir.
years ago, so.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Okay.
Move on to personnel. We'd like to recommend the staff for retirements, resignations, reclassifications, elections, and community coach elections and resignations. I know the board had a chance to meet two of our new assistant principals that were approved at our last meeting. We actually have another one of our assistant principals on this list, but before I get ahead of myself, I'd like to recommend the personnel report as submitted.
Okay, we need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 4, okay.
Okay, I would like to, if I can have a point of personal privilege, Dr. Misa Davis is in the audience. Wave, Dr. Davis. Georgia Tech graduate. I know you won't be offended by that. But we're excited about having her join the staff at Whitewater Middle School. So congratulations, Dr. Davis.
Welcome.
Mr. Howell, I meant to catch you before you went to personnel, but superintendent's report, the future superintendent's report, I would like to have a discussion about our board policy concerning facilities. And we had some emails back and forth about how we lease facilities to the movie industry, and I think that's probably a different criteria than what we'd have for normal facility leasing. And so the Fayette County Development Authority called, or somebody from, an employee from there called, and just wondering where our policy was, and I'm not sure if we have a policy. And I think it'd be good to have that discussion. in some
I think,
future.
I think we do, and we're happy to discuss that. That may be something that we really want to have, at least an addendum added to our current policy. I know that Mr. Sanders actually took some of the folks from the movie industry out and toured some of our facilities this past week, and so we've got some information we can talk with you
Because
about
it's a different
that.
type of use than what I think.
Yes,
our
sir, it
policy
is.
intended for, so.
It is.
Yeah, we can maybe have that on in our next work session.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Ms. Kay, if you'll make a note of that, Mr. Sanders, that would be something we'd need to take a peek at. We have our consent agenda. There are quite a few.
Financial reports.
Oops, I'm sorry. I see I'd already gone ahead. Mr. Gray, I was taking it, going to be easy
Over
on you.
Tom Gray, yeah.
I'm sorry. I had checked it and I'll jump down to the next thing. But
I got you.
Mr. Gray has some good, I think, a good report on our financial
My
report.
feelings aren't hurt. I'm up here enough as it is, so. We have our normal financial reports, cash on hand, $72 million at the end of May. 43 million of that was in the operating account. Second page gives you the breakdown of the operating account. 33 million of that is in the general fund. Third page has our by function report. You can see we're at 97% of revenues for the budget, so we have one more month to go. And then expenditures, about 90% of the budget expended. On the projection sheet, at the top, you can see that we're expecting to be about $2 million under the current budget for expenditures. On the revenues, in the middle section, we're expected to be about $2.6 million over. A lot of that has to do with the midterm that we mentioned before, that the state gave us additional money during the year. So based on that, we would have a surplus for the current year of about $5 million, and then that would give us an operating reserve of $8.3 million at the bottom. Then you go to the first SPLOST report. SPLOST
Tom,
1, we
Tom,
are, oh, excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, just going back to as usual, the sort of the majority of the money we don't spend is in the operational budget, and I was just wondering if there are bigger categories of what that money was.
It's not bigger categories. We actually, normally a lot of times we,
Or is this
energy.
just like a tiny bit in every account?
Yeah, no, I mean, previous to this year, we'd been a little bit under in fuel and energy. Our electric and water is running a little bit lower than our budget. The fuel actually has caught up, and we're back, on normal on fuel. But there's a lot of different areas and different departments that, for different reasons, they're not expended. So it's not one big category. For you, yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll accept the financial report as presented. And now I can go down to consent agenda. Yes, sir. We have quite a few items there. I know most all of these we've had prior conversations about. I did certainly wanted to make sure, Dr. Marshman, we noted the visitor management system is there in the consent agenda.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about that before, so that's a little unusual to put something haven't talked about before on the consent agenda, but that's okay. I think we're all in agreement.
Yes, sir. If that's an issue or concern, I will certainly, normally we, part of the sense of urgency there is to go ahead and make the orders, get it in so we could set up and be ready for the beginning of school. And
I'm just saying, normally, the first time we talk about something.
right,
we vote on it as an action
absolutely.
item so we can
You
discuss it.
you are
Would be the work
100%
session.
correct.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
are,
normally the work session, but if not the work session, at least an action item.
But
Right.
we
But
can
there's no
vote on it
discussion, so-
separately.
right.
Just a procedural
Yes, sir.
comment.
Yes, sir. The track, I know we had talked about that already. We'd like to do the two worst ones, the McIntosh and the Whitewater track, but the bid is for all five. So I just going through and touching on a few of these items, and unless there are any other questions, I'd recommend the board approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Any quote?
Second.
Any comments or discussion? All in favor?
4-0.
4-0.
Okay, moving down then to action items. Of course, the big action item is the work that we've been doing on the FY20 budget. The amount of this year's budget is set at $229,454,060. I do want to make sure the board is aware that this is actually built, we have built in a quarter meal reduction. We also hope to be able to do a slight bond millage reduction as well. We're still working on that. We have a little bit of time before we have to adopt the budget, or adopt the millage rate, but this evening, we need to go ahead and move forward with the adoption of the budget so that we can begin to prepare for purchases over the summer. This will go into effect July 1 moving forward. So I'd like to recommend to the board to approve the FY20 budget as submitted.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Discussed it to death.
We have.
All right, all in favor?
It's 3-1.
Opposed?
3-1.
3-1. Okay, calendar adoption.
I feel really good about this one. I know normally the calendar can be quite a concern for a lot of folks, but we had just under 3,000 parents comment on the calendar. We had over 1,000 staff members actually vote on the calendar, and this is for our next 2 years, not 19-20, but 20-21, and then 21-22 moving forward. It is option B that our folks have selected. We'll actually have a full week of winter holiday and a full week in the spring. That will push us to actually finish the year with our staff early in June. Our start dates are, I think, August 2nd and August 3rd in those 2 years. So we're pleased to be able to bring the calendar. It seems like we have a pretty good consensus on this. I'd recommend the board approve the calendar, option B, for our next 2 years. Not this coming year, but the next 2 after that.
Okay, need a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Barry seconds. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say that in the past and now, it seemed to go a lot smoother this year. I don't know if that was because we had a better process or because we followed our process better, but I think that's very commendable. And so, thank you.
I have to give Dr. Turner and Mr. Sweat and that committee of 25, and they included students and parents and staff and administrators. So I think people appreciated the extra effort and the opportunity to participate and have input.
Seemed to be a good job.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention, I liked this calendar years ago when I taught in another state. Coming back from a student holiday, having a professional learning day, instead of jumping right back in with kids, was always very beneficial. And I like the way that's built into the calendar.
Good deal.
I think the teachers will like that a lot.
I also just want to point out, I think this is the one where we're going to have professional learning on Election Day.
Yes, sir.
And I know some people in our community had concerns about schools being open with and us being a polling place.
Right.
So this will address that. So I think just wanted to kind of point that out very quickly.
We tried to take every bit of information we could and build it in and massage it in. I think it's an improvement, and appreciate everyone's willingness to put their shoulder to the wheel and come up with a consensus here.
Okay. All in favor for option B?
It's 4-0.
4-0.
Good deal. Move on to the flexible benefit. Again, Clear Concept Consulting Group has, I guess you guys have been the winner as far as the recommendation. I know we worked really hard to try to get through with that. I came to the table for the last vetting and interviewing process of both our 2 finalists, and You know, the expectations are high here in Fayette County, so anybody that we let get under the tent's got to do really good work. So no pressure, I'm looking at you guys. But we'd like to recommend Clear Concept Consulting Group to provide our flexible benefits.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I'm just so happy because we've been talking about this for years and how our benefits package needs to be upgraded. So thank you, Aaron, for finally doing something about it. And I don't know Clear Concept that well, but I trust you. So thanks.
Okay. All in favor? 4-0.
Okay, item D is a good item. Not that all of them aren't good. Stars Mill High School and Rising Star Middle School certification of completion. We are done. All of our punch list on those projects are completed. By approving this certification, that means we can contact the state and ask them to send us some of our capital outlay money. So I didn't think anybody would be opposed to having that added in as an action item. We'd recommend the board approve.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 4-0.
And the last action item is our 2019-2020 Student Code of Conduct with the discussed changes, updates. We would recommend that the board approve as well.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Any discussion?
Any discussion? I think we already discussed it.
Little.
All in favor?
It's 4.
4-0.
Do have one information item with regard to strategic waivers. I know we had signed off on the document. They took a while before the state signed off, but due to the shifts in the CCRPI weighting and the test modifications, anyhow, our baseline has been reset again. And just wanted to make sure that the board was aware, and we'll be building this in as part of the metrics that we look at in evaluating our performance as a district. Mr. Hollowell, I do have a couple of quick items for discussion in executive session. One does deal with personnel, and we also have a very quick update on a property issue.
Can I get a motion to move to executive session to discuss personnel and property?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 4-0. All right, need a motion to return from executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Dr. Barrett, do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, sir. We have one recommendation. I would recommend to the board that we accept the resignation letter of Mr. Robert Hunter, principal at Sandy Creek High School.
All right, motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 4-0.
We wish Mr. Hunter all the best in his next endeavors.
Okay. Without objection, we're adjourned.